Hello. Okay. Where are my matches? Let's see. Lavender mint. So, it is 1:30 a.m. and I decided to talk about the heroes of Olympus because I just finished the second book and I have some thoughts. Heroes of Olympus is a continuation of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. And before I get into Heroes of Olympus, I should talk about Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Now, I know some people loved Harry Potter when they were growing up. Loved, obsessed, movies, merch, Twilight. People were obsessed. Lord of the Rings. I can't really think of anything else right now, but Percy Jackson and the Olympians was my everything growing up. This whole tattoo is all Percy Jackson. So this is the last Olympian, the last book cover. This is Riptide, Percy's sword. This is the Titan's Curse, the Lightning Thief. Titan's Curse, Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, and the Battle of the Labyrinth. Sorry, I'm in my underwear. But I have the whole original covers that were on the first edition books. I loved those covers growing up. I have them all tattooed onto me because when I tell you, I have read Percy Jackson and the Olympians so many times, I can't even count how many times. Because when I was in 6th grade is when I first discovered the books. And I think it was just the fact that Percy was my age. We were like 12 years old. We both had problems paying attention in school. We both had single mothers. Both of our fathers weren't in the picture. I loved fantasy. I just connected with his story so strong. Like, his friends were everything. Friends were like my everything. My friends were my everything. And I just saw so much of myself, my insecurities with my body image, with my insecurities when it came to my dad and him not being there, the anger, the confusion, the love for my mom and how strong she had to be in raising me and my sisters alone. Him dealing with, only in the first book really, but Smelly Gabe, if you've read the story, you know, and just like the struggles of dealing with shitty step parents or dealing with, like, if you've ever were raised with a single parent and they start dating someone that you don't like the frustration and hate sometimes that you feel towards that parental figure. And there was just so many aspects that I feel like Rick just got so on point. And as you can see by my tattoo, I just reread that series so much in middle school. I read through the whole thing, read it again, read it again, put it down a little bit for high school, but even in high school, I read it again. After I moved out of my parents' house, read it again, read it again. The last time that I read it was like 2 years ago. And then I just finished reading Percy Jackson and the Olympians like a month or two ago. Um, and it was so good. I need to just do a whole video on the original series in general because it's just perfection. But I remember I was so deep in the original series that when I finished it, I saw that Rick had started working on and releasing the Heroes of Olympus. So I read the first two books when they were coming out because I remember the series wasn't completed. And I got kind of bored. I think I really connect to the original series way more than I connect with the Heroes of Olympus. It is a good. The books were good, not great. Um, I would say I really liked The Son of Neptune way more than I enjoyed The Lost Hero. The Lost Hero is book number 1. Son of Neptune is book number 2. I think maybe just because I wasn't as connected to the characters, I think especially the second time around. I also noticed that while I'm reading the Heroes of Olympus, there is a mark that misses with me when it comes to like the humor. Love the humor, love the sarcasm, love the wittiness in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. When I read Heroes of Olympus so far, the first two books, something about it feels a little bit forced to me. It it feels like people really liked the wittiness, they liked the joking, like the dry humor in Percy Jackson, that I feel like he sort of turns it up a notch in the Heroes of Olympus. And I don't know why. Sometimes it just feels a little bit forced, especially when it comes to Leo. And I know that Leo is supposed to be this like funny, butt of the joke kind of character. But for some reason, I don't know why, the humor just does not get to me. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I laugh, sometimes I kiki, sometimes I get it. But sometimes I'm like, and I also, and that's another thing too. Since middle school, I mean, I'm 27 now, and I have read real fantasy books, you know? I just read, I finished the whole first arc of the Stormlight Archives this past winter. Oh my god. Obsessed. Obsessed. Brandon Sanderson murdered the Stormlight Archives. And it took me a little bit to get into that first book, but once I got into it, oh my lord. Throne of Glass series. Holy shit, right? So I think now that I'm rereading children's books, I get the reason why there's so much humor and the reason why Rick writes the way he does. But I would love Rick to write like a high fantasy series, because I think that's where the full connection isn't hitting with me with the Heroes of Olympus, because it seems like such a big story, you know, like the Romans and the Greeks and they're fighting each other, and he's expanding on this universe that he built within the original Percy Jackson books. And those books were already so detailed, they were so expansive. I learned so much about Greek history just through those books alone. So the fact that we're adding a whole other camp, we're adding a whole other level with Roman gods and Roman aspects and Roman personalities and Roman battles and society and everything like that. I love the idea and the world that he's building and expanding upon. I love the fact that like the story that he's trying to tell, it seems so massive that sometimes I get a little disappointed when I'm reading it because it just, and I get it. I get it. Don't come for my throat because I get it. It's a kids book series, but I feel like if he would have written it from like a high fantasy level, it would be perfection. Oh my god, it would be so good. But I get it. I get it. I'm rereading like a children's series basically. But it is, and also I think another aspect is like the first Percy Jackson and the Olympians, that is all Percy. It's told from his perspective, and he's also narrating it. I forgot like if that's first person, third person. Don't hate me. I can't remember. But Percy is the one telling the story. This, oh my god, now I'm going to be stupid. Let me look it up. Let me look it up. Third person versus first person. And you bitches better not come for my throat because I know. Okay, yeah. Blah, 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 tells a story. Okay, yeah. Third person, okay, yeah. So, Percy Jackson and the Olympians is told from a first person's point of view, and Heroes of Olympus is told from a third person point of view, and you also have six more perspectives. And I think that's probably where I'm losing. Like, I'm feeling the same way kind of that I did back when I was first reading the Heroes of Olympus back in the day, where I didn't really want to finish the series because I just wasn't as connected. I think there's so many storylines going on that you do learn to like get to know the character, and you get to like see their history and get their backstory and everything, but there's just like so much going on that it's hard to like love one character besides Percy because you don't really know that much about them per se. And since it's splitting up into so many different perspectives, it's hard to like really hook on to one and really get to love them the way that you need to. And I feel like that's why I wish Rick would have made this a high fantasy series, because it's already so big. And I know the books are already like 500 pages, but like imagine if he wrote like 500 more for each one, like literally make like 1,000 page book each, like Stormlight Archives, and just delve into each character like full force. Oh my god, it would be so good. That's probably my unpopular opinion, but that's what I think. Um, the Lost Hero. Let's talk about Jason. Jason is cute. He's doing his thing. Um, don't really connect with him as much as I would hope and what I would like, but I get why Jason needed to be the first character introduced into the series. He's basically like Percy's opposite, Percy's switcheroo. But I don't know, I didn't really connect. Piper, I liked Piper's storyline because of the Native American aspect of it. I grew up near the Navajo reservation, so it was cool to like see that culture be. Also, let's talk about that because Rick did a very, very good job of like making each character very full of culture. You know, Percy is, of course, white boy from New York. Always going to be an interesting storyline. Always going to be a storyline that people are interested in reading about. New York, one of the most famous cities in the world. Leo, Hispanic. We have Frank, Chinese. We have Piper, Cherokee. We have Hazel, African American, right? She's supposed to be African American from New Orleans. Um, Leo, Piper. Who am I missing? Leo, Piper, Hazel, Frank. Yeah. Annabeth, white girl from California, wherever she's from. He's did a very good job of like a, making it a broad set of characters, which I really liked. And I feel like that was very ahead of its time. Because this was like, what, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, something like that when the series first came out. Rick was knew what he was doing when he was like coming up with each individual character. So I really liked Piper's storyline. I liked Leo's storyline, but I don't know why I was kind of pushing myself to finish The Lost Hero. It was like the only reason why I am rereading this series is because I DNF'd this back in like high school or middle school, whenever this series was originally coming out, and I really want to know how it ends. Like, I already dedicated so much time into reading the first two books that I was like, fuck, okay, I need to finish this series. I'm doing the same thing with Pretty Little Liars. I'm on book 11 of Pretty Little Liars, and they're 16, but you know what's fucked up? I digress, but you know what's fucked up? In high school, I read all the way up until the 15th book. There's 16 books in that series, and I never finished it. I do not know why. So I'm like, let me reread them. That's for another video. But I need to know how the Heroes of Olympus story ends. And I have not seen any spoilers. I've not seen anybody talk about the Heroes of Olympus. A lot of fucking people have read it because I see the reviews and I see how many people highlighted stuff in the Kindle app. But I just need to know. So I reread the first two again. I just started The Mark of Athena, but I found The Son of Neptune way more interesting, and it was way easier to get through. My only gripe is that The Son of Neptune is not available on Audible. It does not have an audiobook anywhere. And I find that very confusing. And like, what the hell? Why is The Son of Neptune not anywhere to be found in an audiobook form? Because when I read big series like this, I usually will download the audiobook with the book because my job is very time consuming. So sometimes I don't have a lot of time to like sit down and read because I'm just working so much or like traveling so much or doing so much that I don't have like work just gets in the way. So I'll usually have the audiobook so I could listen at the gym. I'll have an audiobook so I could listen while I'm cleaning or doing laundry, or just like whenever I can't read, I'll listen. Or sometimes I'll do both. It's good to like listen and follow along at the same time. But with The Son of Neptune, there's no audiobook to be found, so I had to really raw dog that and just like read it all the way through. But thank God Rick wrote it the way he did. Oh fuck. thank God Rick wrote it the way he did, because the story was so much better. And maybe that was because Percy was in it, but the one character that I have actually found really interesting and whose storyline seemed the most rich to me was Hazel. I loved the whole imagery and the aesthetic that Rick birthed with Hazel, and her mom being like this witchy psychic in New Orleans. Like, I feel like I was like transported back into a time where what it would feel like to be the child of a spooky psychic woman in New Orleans. And I've only been to New Orleans once. I was there for like a week during the pandemic. And that city already has like a very old, spooky, like, I know there's a lot of partying, I know there's a lot of bars and Mardi Gras and all that, but you could feel the the mystical mystery energy that is in New Orleans. And I feel like, Hazel hiding behind doors and listening to her mom like talk to herself and talk to spirits and hearing voices and like making deals with Gaia was like, I love spooky things like that in general. So I just really like, whenever she would have a flashback or whenever she would like get transported back to those times with her mom, I found that storyline so interesting, where I was actually like excited to pick up the book and learn more about that. And I feel like that story had a lot of depth to it too. Not to say that the other ones didn't. I think Leo's was pretty interesting too, with his mom and the mom's workshop and the fire and her dying in the fire and everything like that. That one was good. Oh my god. And can we talk about the fact that Hazel's long lost lover, Sammy, is literally an identical twin with Leo? And Hazel is supposed to be in love with Frank, but now Leo's here and he looks just like Sammy, and Sammy was the one who Hazel would ride horses with, and they shared that kiss, and he was always like the long lost love of her life or something like that. That was a twist that I loved. That was a twist that I was a little bit shocked by. Rick, you did that. That was very good. Um, so yeah, Hazel's storyline so far is very intriguing to me. I would love it if we dove a little bit more into her past. I hope that happens. I don't know how much that will happen, because it seems like now that the first two books, it seems like, is very much an introduction. It seems like what's happening with the first two books is Rick is trying to introduce you to the characters and establish and trying to let you get to know them in the quickest way possible while telling like an interesting story. So I'm really hoping that the next three books are just like better. Not to say these were bad at all, because they're good books, but I want a great book. I want a great book. Like Percy Jackson, those are great books. And I just feel like these first two were just introduction. I'm already feeling like the Mark of Athena. I know we're not supposed to talk about that because we're not there yet, but, and I'm literally only like 70 pages in. I just started yesterday. Um, it's good. I'm liking it. Still, I feel like we could pull back a little bit with the Leo jokes, and I get it. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be like comedic relief. But I just wish there was a little bit more depth. Not to say there isn't depth, but I would like more depth. And I think it's coming. I did watch, I think it was like a month or two ago. Maybe, I forgot if it was on TikTok. It had to be a TikTok. Or maybe it was like a YouTube short or something like that. But someone, they were like talking about the Heroes of Olympic series on TikTok. Someone posted a TikTok about it. And in the comments, people were saying that the last few books were way better than the first two. So I'm just being patient and hoping that that is true. And I'm like trying to remember what happened in the first book. They saved Hera from her little prison at the Wolf House. That was like their quest to go on. Hera's being shady. Hera's being a bitch, of course, like she's always been. But she's doing it for a reason. I know everyone hates on Hera. I don't really understand the hate about Hera. I get that she's like bitchy, but at the same time, she's like trying to save the world. So she knows what she's doing. I don't doubt that she knows what she's doing, but second book, their quest was to kill the giant, whatever his name was. Interesting storyline, happened very fast. Again, while that was happening, like while Percy, Hazel, and Frank were on their quest to go to Alaska, I don't know why something about like that last ending battle scene against the giant just seems so lackluster. Like it just didn't seem detailed. It seemed quick. There were so many jokes. Like I feel like there was so much more space and room for like a very rich battle scene. And I get it, and I'll keep saying it. I know it's a kid's book. But I feel like there was just room for more depth. And also, I do have to remember that I think what's happening in my brain is I'm comparing this to Stormlight Archives in a Percy Jackson and the Olympians story is like this. Stormlight Archives is like high fantasy. And I feel like Heroes of Olympus is like here a little bit. It's just missing something. I don't know. I don't know. Ugh. I would say Percy Jackson's like up here. But I don't know. I can't think. It's literally 2 in the morning. And I'm trying to talk about this. And I'm struggling. But so far I'm liking it. I feel like I've been very negative in this video, like talking down. I just think it's like a good book. They're good books. A little bit unmemorable, some of the moments in them. I just hope more happens. I am liking Annabeth's storyline so far in the Mark of Athena because it seems like we're getting somewhere real. Like, Annabeth is pissed. Like, usually Annabeth is a little bitchy, like, she's complaining, like, and stuff like that, but seeing things from her perspective is also interesting and refreshing. And, like, her anger towards Percy, her anger towards this whole quest, this sort of mystery of this conversation that she had with Athena her mom and this mark of Athena and this coin in her thing and like this spirity, chilly wind spirit that's like following her around. It's already seeming way more interesting than the first two books and like the swap of Percy and Jason. Because honestly, that I think that was supposed to be like the most interesting, intriguing aspect of the Lost Hero and the Son of Neptune was like the switch between Percy and Jason between the two camps, and to see how each of them navigated in each camp. And it was like interesting to read the switch, but at the same time, it just seemed very easy for both of them at each camp. Like, I think that's like another thing too, is there's not a lot of like obstacle for Percy or Jason in these first two books. It's like, even though they are each getting placed in this new environment with enemy territory, they rise to power and gain respect and so easy. Like, there's a couple people at the camps that are like skeptical about them and their position, but Percy becomes like the leader right away. He goes on one quest, already offered a job as the head honcho. Jason gets there, everyone's already in love with him, he's already got a quest, he's already like the main thing. It just seems like a very lackluster story building. Like, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter. It's introduction to the series, and I just really want to know what's going to happen at the end of the book. The end of the series, I meant. Um, I just wish there was more of like a challenge. Like, I loved how in A Way of Kings, like Kaladin's storyline of like getting thrown into Bridge 4 and how he literally like got pushed so far emotionally and physically that he was literally going to himself, because that's how hard the new environment was, and he literally had to like hit literally almost rock bottom to like build this huge like character story arc beautiful thing. Even in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, like, he had to go through so much shit before he even went on the first quest. Like, there was so much more storytelling, there was so much more personality building, world building, character building. There was so many more obstacles. There was so much more like test of character, and it was so much more of like a rich story. And again, I also get that these books have so many different perspectives that you don't really have enough time, especially since it's a children's book, to build up those storylines. And I think Rick is such a talented author that if he did have more of a canvas to paint on, a larger canvas to paint on, he would be able to make the story so much more rich. And I hope, I pray that one day Rick will make an adult high fantasy series. I would love that. Um, but yeah, basically, Jason's book was about them saving Hera. They did that. I can't really remember what else happened in that book. Piper's charm speak, Leo and the dragon and the whatever. Son of Neptune. So much more interesting, I thought. Learning about Rome and the new Rome was so cool. I really did like Frank's backstory too, with his mom and his grandma and those Chinese elements. The shape shifting is cool. I really, really loved Hazel's perspective in her flashbacks and everything like that. Oh, Nico, that little cunt. Nico, that little cunt. When he showed up, and I forgot about that when I was starting to read The Son of Neptune, the fact that Nico is just so rogue that he knew about the Roman camp all of this time, and when he saw Percy, he didn't say anything. That is crazy. Especially if you have read A Titan's Curse. Because if you have read A Titan's Curse, you know the backstory with Leo and Percy and Bianca and that whole shit that went down with Bianca's death and Nico hating Percy for a long time. And seeing Nico go from this sweet, innocent, excited character to literally being turned into this dark, hateful, full of resentment and revenge type of character, and to just have him run into Percy in a Roman camp and just not give a fuck or tell Percy anything or help him out in any way, that was crazy. And now at the end of The Son of Neptune, we find out that Leo is basically, or not Leo, Nico is gonna die at the doors of death. So it's getting better. Lost Hero, Son of Neptune, it's a step up. And if the mark of Athena is going the way that I think it's going, we're taking another step up. And I hope those last two books just knock it out of the park. It's kind of giving me Throne of Glass a little bit, in the sense of it's a slow burn. When I first started reading Throne of Glass, I started with Assassin's Blade and then A Throne of Glass. Yes, I read it in that order. I was so bored. And I almost quit the series. But once I got to Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, it was over. I was locked in. But it took a few books to really get me going. So I have a feeling this is going to be the same way, especially based off of those people's comments about the Heroes of Olympus and how the last couple books are better. I'm thinking it's just going to take a couple books. And I don't know how I feel about these new covers. Let me show you. Can you see? I like the original ones better. Right? I don't know if you guys remember the original ones. It's the same thing with the Percy Jackson books. Look at this. Why would they change them? Oh my god, why does this keep happening? Like, look at these. They got rid of these beautiful paintings. These beautiful paintings for these. Whatever. Not my publisher, not my problem. But yeah. 1 out of 5 for The Lost Hero. I would give it like a 3.5. The Son of Neptune, I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4. It was okay. And we will see. Okay, it's literally 2:14. And I need to go to bed. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I don't even know if that made sense. I feel like this video literally is only going to make sense to the people who have read the books or know what I'm talking about. But whatever.